Good evening, everyone. Thanks very much for coming in. We hope you're all safe and well, and welcome to a very special Paranormal History Live with a very special guest, Mr. Richard Felix, author, historian, TV personality. We can say, Richard, you've done just about everything, buddy.
I don't know. Listen, there's lots more to do. Trust me. I've only just started. I hope. Although I tell you what, the only problem is I'm running out of time.
But it's brilliant to have you here. Really, it's an honour.
Pleasure to be on.
So we've got Patricia Middleton, and I'm sorry if I don't say hello to everybody in the chat, but to everybody who's watching or coming in, thanks very much for joining us. And we hope you're all safe and well. So, Richard,
yes,
you're a busy man. You've been, you've done. I'm kind of, to be honest with you, I'm stuck where to start with you. In a good way.
How about the beginning? Yes, by the way.
That would be,
drop of Glenlivet here.
That would be an idea, buddy. So, when did it all start? The paranormal, the interest in the history and everything.
Well, I mean, the first thing, of course, is that from the age of about 4, I've been frightened of ghosts, and I still am, which is absolute rubbish. Because one of the many things I preach to everybody is that ghosts are not there to get you. They're not supposed to be scary. It's just that we don't understand what they are, and so we're scared of it. But no, from the age of 4, I had a fear of ghosts. No, when I say frightened, I mean terrified.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely terrified. There wasn't a night went by where I wasn't terrified of seeing a ghost, and I never did. Never saw it. Nothing ever even happened to me till the age of 27. And then when it did happen, it wasn't scary. And yet even now, I still have this. Basically, if you're frightened of snakes when you're a kid, you'll probably always be frightened of snakes. And I find that it's the same thing with this, with the ghost business. I'm still actually, that's why people would notice the very infrequent times that I ever went off alone on a ghost hunt or on Most Haunted doing a lone vigil, because I genuinely still have this fear, which is stupid. But anyway, so that was right through, always has been. But really, as regards I wasn't interested in ghosts. But then again, I suppose having a fear of it, perhaps you have got an inward interest, I suppose. But nothing happened at all until I became the chairman of Derby Tourism. Would you believe? And I opened a heritage centre in an old Tudor grammar school in the centre of Derby that had got a ghost in it. And of course, I suppose that was my worst fear. Sometimes I'd have to go upstairs alone into the dormitories where the schoolboys would have slept. This is from Tudor times, from 1554. And someone had genuinely seen a ghost in the building. And I thought, well, I need a way of trying to attract people to come to the city of Derby. So I thought, well, York do ghost walks. Edinburgh does ghost walks. So I thought, why don't I try a ghost walk?
Mm-hmm.
So I started the ghost walk, and I didn't like it because I didn't believe half that I was telling people. So I thought that's rubbish. The 3 men, the heads of the 3 men on the anniversary of their murder, their heads have been seen in the trees, and the word justice of blow. Oh, it's rubbish. I thought, if I'm going to do it, I've got to believe it. So I stopped. Mm-hmm. Didn't do anything for 6 months, and did some serious research into it, including many discussions with a local medium, very famous guy locally, who, if there is such a thing as a real medium, he was. But he'd also written books about Derby ghosts and Derbyshire ghosts. So I learned a lot from this guy. And then I came back and I thought, right, okay, I'm ready. Let's do a ghost walk that I believe in. And basically, it snowballed from there big time. And eventually, I actually had Derby declared the most haunted city in England, with York and Chester joint second. Wow! And it was in print. It was in the Sun, amongst other newspapers. And so that's actually how it started. Ghost walks. But being the sort of guy that I am, because see, my passion in life was military history. Soldiers, battles, uniforms. So I was a huge collector of militaria, and my fascination was disasters. I'm a walking disaster, I think. Everything from the Charge of the Light Brigade to the Alamo, to Custer's Last Stand, to Battle of Culloden, and stuff like that. And I realised big time, very early on, that ghosts and history go together. And one feeds the other. The only problem with it is that part of it you can prove, part of it you can't. You can prove the history, but you can't prove the ghosts. Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I've taken on this quest, to be quite honest with you, to try and prove what a ghost is. And that's actually, and so I refer to myself as the voice of reality in the ghost business, the credible one, the one that ticks the normal boxes first before remotely considering the remote possibility that it's a ghost.
You like to look at every other kind of avenue first, yes, before you label it as paranormal.
Absolutely. In fact, whatever paranormal means, because at the end of the day, what does paranormal mean? Well, para is the Latin for running alongside, parallel. So in other words, it's something that's running alongside the normal. Paranormal. Supernatural. Well, natural's fine. In other words, it's natural, but it's a bit super because we don't understand it yet. And one of my many phrases is today's magic will be tomorrow's science, which it will. But we haven't. But the problem we've got is science doesn't want to know because of the Scooby-Doo side of the ghost business, I'm afraid. And many programs and films, Hollywood and whatever, and it's all scare factor. It's all Scooby-Doo. And there's a reality behind it. But you try talking to a scientist about it and say, oh, no, the rubbish, silly ghosts.
They're no wanting to hear. I'm just going to quickly just say, I can't name everybody in the room. I do apologise, but a big welcome just because the room's filled up quite quick.
Oh, great.
Just hello to everybody that's come in. Thanks for joining us. Got a quick question for you, Richard, from John.
Oh, great stuff. Yeah.
English team. It popped up a wee while ago.
John Madison, I can read it. You're dying to know Richard's process when he comes to research. Where do you start? Yeah, when you have a location that requires. Right. Well, I mean, I start. Oh, God help me. Of course, unfortunately, I start with the internet, I'm afraid. And I also then start with quite an extensive library that I've got myself. And then, to be honest with you, the next stage is actually local studies library, or the local library in wherever I happen to be going. But then the big one is talking to the people that live there, work there, custodian of the building. That's where I learn so much more about the location by talking to them. Or, for instance, I mean, that was with Most Haunted. That's what I'd do. I'd be up there early, and I'd be off talking to people. I want to speak to the gardener. Oh yeah, the guy. Do you know what, the gardener? He actually saw something. Blah blah. Okay, is he in today? Can I? Yes, he's here. Or no, actually, he's not. No. Well, can I have his phone number? Can I have a chat with him? Or well, there's Mrs. So and so that she used to be in the shop and blah blah blah, and she had two experts. Can I speak to her? Well, she only lives around the corner. Yeah. I don't know whether she's in or not, but give me her address. Would it be all right if I go and see her? And that's what I tend to do all the time. And that's where you get from the horse's mouth the reality behind it. Not the Chinese whispers, not the bit that's been passed down from so-and-so to so-and-so, but the person that saw it, the person that sensed it, smelt it, felt it, heard it, or whatever it happens to be. And that's where I tend to spend an awful lot of time trying to do that. And then afterwards, I then try and spend a bit more time, or did, on Most Haunted and stuff like that, which was a waste of time, by the way, trying to find out more about what had happened on the night, including taking the bones that we'd found to the local museum to see if they were human or not, or going back to the local studies library when I'd been given a couple of names or events that had taken place. So that's the big one. That's how I tend to do it. Sometimes you come up with an absolute treat. Other times you come up with nothing. But that's the way to do it. But the big one is talking to the people that experience the place.
It's funny you should say that. I was talking to a gentleman this afternoon. He's an author and historian, much the same as yourself.
Yeah. And
he's saying when he goes on holiday with his wife's into architecture and stuff. He's into paranormal. He usually just disappears and goes about talking to people, just exactly as you said, Richard.
Yes, absolutely.
Pardon the pun, digging people up, and talking to them kind of face to face. He says that's where your real information is.
Yeah.
You can get so much from the internet, etc. He says that's where your real story is for the people that have actually been there, seen it.
So right. And I tend to do it. Funnily enough, wherever I go, because I have an insatiable appetite for the whole damn thing, and I wherever I go, if there's a local legend or a story of some sort, then I start talking to people about it while I'm on holiday, driving my wife mad about it. To be honest with you, I can't switch off.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. You find it hard to switch off. I mean, Steve and I, we're going away next week. On Monday, we're going away for about 9-10 days. And when we arranged it, we swore to each other, right, no group stuff, nothing like that, just totally gone. And, a plan.
Yeah, relax.
But you can't do it because you're right, I'll take the camera and I'll take we'll go to York, we'll get photographs there. And you just, it never turns off. I've got 3 questions for you in a row, Richard. You're getting hammered.
Not a problem.
And then we'll get to Thomas. I know Thomas has got some stuff he wants to ask you. So, first one is from Selena. We're going to pop it up.
Oh, gosh. That's an interesting one. Do I think libraries are going to disappear overnight in history? Maybe like, oh dear. Well, I mean, I suppose the thing is that, whenever you go to the libraries now, it's often not the book that you tend to go for. You tend to go for the microfiche machine that has everything on tape. You know what I mean? And that's, that's okay. But I think you tend to miss things. Whereas if you actually got the book or the paper, the newspaper or the document, whatever it happens to be, in front of you, then, but I mean, they're still there, but they're not always accessible. Quite right. So it will certainly make life difficult for people like me, who's a total and utter technophobe, and really would like the hard copy to be able to pour through, look at and thumb through and you know what I mean? So it could cause problems. But then again, the other one, of course, it could make life easier because eventually, I presume, everything will be online. So you actually can do it from the comfort of your home rather than having to make a trip to the local library. You can do it. In other words, if you're going somewhere to do a program or a show or something like that, you can do it at home rather than taking time while you're away. But again, I still think that things could be missed compared to going to the library and looking through the stuff. You could miss things that you don't know are there. It's a difficult one.
Ghost Witches, she's part of our English team as well.
Yep.
I've put you through there, buddy.
Is there a place that stands out in your mind that had a great blend of your military history, interests, and investigation? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean, lots. I mean, one was when we were in California with Most Haunted, and we went to a place called the Drum Barracks, which was a Union Army barracks during the American Civil War. And again, I'm on to all sorts. I'm into, as I say, all battles in general and all that sort of stuff. And that was quite an exciting place. And I got on extremely well with the members of staff there. And they actually, because we don't get down very well these days, but I'm into the Confederacy and the South in America. And they actually presented me with a battle flag from the Confederacy and a set of Confederate flags, which people don't really like anymore, unfortunately. But I was thrilled to bits with that place. And another one, because my real passion is the Charge of the Light Brigade and 5 regiments that took part in that. And I actually went to did a ghost hunt at a place called Cannon Hall in Yorkshire. And it was, would you believe, the regimental museum of the 13th Light Dragoons, who took part in the front line of the Charge of the Light Brigade. And they'd got items on display that belonged to a captain who was in charge and was killed during the Charge of the Light Brigade. And he actually came through on a table tilting session that we did in the museum. And that was, wow, to me, that was something beyond most things. Yeah, I was... all my Christmases came in one night. That was a good one.
One for Justin. He's part of our English team as well.
Yeah. Hi, Richard. What was the one single piece of evidence that made you believe? Oh, okay. Yeah. It's not. It is a single piece of evidence, but it's a single piece of evidence that is told by so many people. And that is right. Let me explain. And I always do this at the end of my events, again, my ghost walks, my tours, whatever I'm doing. I say, guys, I can tell you honestly, there is no proof. There is no proof that ghosts exist. And I guarantee anybody out there, nobody can actually prove it. We can't bring a ghost and prove it, right? But the one bit of proof I have is, right, first of all, 35% of children under the age of 6 have imaginary friends, as we call them. That's our way of dealing with it. Oh, little Johnny's got a vivid imagination. Yeah, okay. I see. No, he hasn't. He's seeing ghosts. Because children under the age of 6 have got very little in their minds, because they've only just gone to school, and their minds are still open. Children's minds are open, which means that they see things that they forget that they later can't do. In the same way as about 15 years ago, we could still find our way anywhere. Now we can't, because we're totally reliant on satellite navigation. But we had this ability before to be able to get to Cardiff and number 33 Brighton Road in Cardiff. Now we haven't. We panic if the sat nav goes down. It's the same thing. So when kids start cramming their minds with tables and Pythagoras' theorem and bank accounts and telephone, then we lose ability that we had when our minds were open. So children are seeing ghosts. There's no doubt about that in my mind, right? So you've got the little girl comes down in the morning, said, Mummy, why does that old lady come into my bedroom at night? She's lovely. She smiles at me. She sometimes talks to me. And of course, Mummy's way of dealing with it is, well, little Susie's got a vivid imagination, you know. But she hasn't, because she's seeing somebody. There's no doubt about it. Then Christmas comes around, and all the family's around there, and everybody's having a good time. And someone decides to get the photograph album out. That won't happen much longer either, because it'll all be on your phone. But, you know, and out come the photographs, and the little girl suddenly takes a bit of interest. And she stands and looks on the table. She says, "Oh, Mummy, look, there's the lady that comes into my bedroom." And everyone goes, "Oh, God, what? What's the problem? What's the problem?" It's a grandma. The little girl's 4. Grandma's been dead for 9 years. The little girl never saw her. And she picks her out from the photograph. This happens over and over and over and over again. I get this all the time, because when I do my events and walks and talks, I talk to people. They talk to me and they give me their accounts. And for me, that's proof positive. And it doesn't happen once. It happens probably happens to me with people probably 4 or 5 times a year. People tell me the same story. They could have been listening to the person telling me the story the other day. And it happens so often that, to me, that's proof. But nobody can prove it. The little girl can't prove what she saw. But she can, in a way, by pointing her out from the photograph.
I've heard that quite a few times, Susie, that kids, and even kids that maybe, passed for 2 or 3 minutes and been brought back, in hospital, whatever, and then they went to visit a relative's house, and they'll say, that's the lady that came to meet me. Yep. I seen that lady or man, whoever it was, they point to the picture on the fireplace or wherever. So, as you say, it is proof, but people are always going to dispute it.
Of course they are, and they always will.
They're always
Until
going.
all our relatives come back to us, like on the Day of the Dead, like they believe in Mexico, then there won't be any. But there's no, and of course you see, again, proof to me is talking to Joe Public about it, and they give me their accounts, and the person that tells me the story yesterday night, for instance, could have been listening to the person last Thursday telling me their story or account, and they're so similar, and they're real. No, there's no doubt about it. It's real, but we can't prove it yet.
No, not yet.
I'm working on it.
We'll get, maybe one day. I think that's just before we come to Thomas. Sorry, Thomas. I think that's the thing about the paranormal as well. One thing that I think, it's just my opinion, but you're always looking for that answer, and you're always hoping you're going to find that, one piece of 1,000% concrete evidence. And I think that makes it more exciting as well, as the hope that one day you will. Onwards tonight, as I said, Richard, we've got Thomas Broad, who is the author of the Pendle Witch blog. Now, I know you've got some Pendle Witches. Thomas, in our mind, is probably the top authority on anything to do with Pendle Witches.
Yeah.
And I know he's been dying to speak to you as well.
Right.
So I'll let him have a wee word with you. We won't hog it. I'll let Thomas have a wee couple of questions or whatever it is.
Great, yeah, awesome. Hi, Thomas.
Hello, Richard. Thanks very much
doing?
for coming on. I'm wonderful, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, you seem to be as well.
Yeah, I am. I'm great. I'm absolutely fine. Yeah, I am absolutely always been. I have never done Pendle. I covered it a little bit on Ghosts of Lancashire, the DVD. I went to various places, but I've never been and done any. Oh, sorry, I have. Obviously, I did 2 Most Hauntings, but that's a different story, as you know.
Yeah.
A different story. I won't say anymore. I mean, admittedly, one of the places we went to did belong to a member of the Nutter family, didn't it? I think.
It's been a very long time since I watched that episode of Most Haunted.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I mean, as you just said about your DVDs, I had quite a few of your DVDs.
Oh dear.
So I still do somewhere. And I was just hoping if you could share your story about what you saw at Derby Gal.
Oh God,
you
yeah.
sort of, it was a daylight sighting. I was just wondering
yes.
if you could maybe elaborate on that and share it with our audience and our team
Of
members.
course. I mean, I should think most people in the world have probably heard. No, that's not it. Basically, yeah. I mean, you see, I mean, Derby Jail, all houses wherein men have lived and died are haunted houses, according to Longfellow. You know, and Derby Jail's notoriously haunted. There's no getting away from that. And I've had it for 22 years. I've only ever seen one ghost. It's the only ghost I've ever seen. And absolutely, it was 3:20 on a Friday afternoon. It was admittedly the last Friday in November. It was about 16 years ago, something like that now. And all I'd done was come into the jail in the afternoon to raid the till from the night before, because there'd been a ghost walk, which I hadn't done, and the cash was still in the till. So I came in the front entrance, didn't bother to put the lights on in the actual middle corridor of the jail, went round into the kitchen area, put a light on there, and helped myself to the money out the till when the phone went. And it was luckily it was a guy from Derby City Council. Now, you guys up there will probably be interested in this, because basically the guy that was talking to me played Bonnie Prince Charlie every year in the parade that we do through the streets of Derby, because that's where Charles Edward Stuart unfortunately turned back on his way to take the throne back. And I, as chairman of Derby Tourism, being the chairman of the Charles Edward Stuart Society, organised an event for the 250th anniversary. And this guy, Darren Best, he dressed up as Bonnie Prince Charlie and rode through the streets of Derby with a pipe band and the Drambuie pipe band. Anyway, we were chatting about the event, which takes place on the first weekend in December. And I was stood talking to him, and there's a cutout window in the corridor, because the kitchen where I'm talking to him from was a prison cell, and it had a window cut into the corridor. And I'm stood talking to him when this figure glides past this cutout window. It wasn't clothed, it wasn't male, it wasn't female, it had no features at all. It was a grey haze, the shape of a person, but it was, and I've said this 20,000 times, I should think, it was so grey. That's the thing that's always stuck in my mind. Now, I couldn't see through it. It was a haze, but I couldn't see. It was dense. I couldn't see the wall through it. And I saw it, but I also sensed it. It had a presence, is the only word I can use. And I didn't see it out the corner of my eye. I was stood full on looking at it as it glided, or walked. I don't know what it did, because I couldn't see its legs, or where its legs would have been, or whatever, because it was a cutout window. And so I just saw that top half, probably down to waist height, gliding past me. And I'm talking at least 4 seconds until it went to a corner where I couldn't see it. And I says to this guy, because this is the first ghost I've ever seen, and don't forget I'm frightened of ghosts. I said, I've just seen a bloody ghost. He says, that's daft. I said, look, hang on, I'm not kidding, just a minute. And I did what? Normal box, yeah. I'm not open. Someone's come in. They may be rather grey and a haze and look like a ghost, but they've just come in. So I put the phone down and I stuck my head around the front of the counter to look through where it would have gone to in the darkness, and there was no one there. And there was no other way in or out other than the way it had come in. That's when the hair on the back of my neck stood up, I'll tell you. And I went back on the phone and I said, Darren, I'm not kidding you, mate. I've just seen a ghost. And he still said, don't be so ridiculous. I said, look, I hope you don't mind, but I may well stay on the phone a bit longer than we'd anticipated. And he says, what do you mean? I said, I'll tell you what I mean, mate. When I put this phone down, I'm on my own with what I've just seen. And I'm trying to ghost. He said, yeah, well, go on then. So I actually, we talked about the event that was happening on the Saturday. And then after a while, I felt a right to be honest with you. And I said, well, I'm going to have to let you go. And he says, well, yes, Richard, I have got business. I have got work to do. And so I put the phone down, and then I really panicked because I realized I'd got to come out and go up the corridor where I've just seen a ghost. And I'm frightened of ghosts. By the way, that's the end of it. It's over. It was gone. Now, first thing is, it didn't get me, as I've always had this fear of something stood at the foot of my bed in the middle of the night. Yeah, because they don't do that. Yeah, it didn't do anything. It didn't. I don't know whether it knew I was there. It just went past me and carried on into the jail. I've ticked every normal box I can imagine to try and disprove it, because I still, 15 years on, I'm still waiting for someone to come up and tell me, do you know what it was? When the sun's in a certain direction and the door's half open and the wind's blowing, oh, come on. No, nobody ever has. But was it a foggy day? Well, no, it was November. But no, a piece of fog, person-shaped fog, can't come down the steps into the cellar of this building, the dungeons of this cellar, and glide along. It's not possible. Well, had you got a fire burning? Was it smoke? No, it wasn't. I hadn't got a fire. I'd only just popped in to get them. Had you got the kettle on? Was it steam? No, it wasn't. I hadn't got the kettle on. Was it the dishwasher? Was steam coming out the dish? No, I hadn't. Was it infrasound? I've actually, Steve Parsons, I don't really know Steve, runs Parascience. Steve has got, Christ knows, thousands and thousands of pounds worth of equipment, including a machine that detects infrasound. And he's been in that corridor and tried to find out if there's any infrasound that causes the corner of the eye syndrome, the fear factor. No. I've only got one explanation, guys. I saw a ghost in Derby Jail at 3:20 on a Friday afternoon in broad daylight.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's the only ghost I've ever seen.
You just answered my other question. I was about to ask if you've seen anything before or since.
Never. But, I've had a lot of experiences where things have happened that I can't explain them. Mm-hmm. I've also heard a ghost, and I've travelled with a ghost.
Travelled with a ghost?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's the one everywhere. That's the one that flicks the switch to people. Everybody but Richard Bacon. From do you remember him? He was Blue Peter, and he was thrown out on it for drugs, I think. And I was doing a Radio 5 live broadcast with him and Dr. Chris French, and he asked me what the best ghost story I'd got was, and he trashed it, absolutely trashed it. See what you guys think, Jay? Yeah. It was, oh God, let me right. Military history is my thing, right? And I went to Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. I was commissioned into the Worcestershire Insured Foresters, and my dad was into military stuff like me, but never did anything. Was very proud of the fact what I did. And Dad used to come down. Now back to the Bonnie Prince Charlie job. I used to borrow the scarlet uniforms, red coats from the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst for this parade and battle that we used to do in Derby every year. And Dad used to come down to Sandhurst with me to collect the uniforms. And we got very friendly with Dr. David Chandler, who was head of war studies at Sandhurst. And he used to come and stay with my dad when we did. He used to come up to the Bonnie Prince Charlie parade dressed as the Duke of Cumberland. Anyway, I used to borrow the uniforms, and I borrowed them in December 1991, and Dad died in February 1992, and I delayed taking the uniforms back to Sandhurst. And David Chandler rang me in July and said, "Are we getting them back, or are you keeping them till next Christmas?" I said, "No, David, I'll bring them back for you." So I loaded the car up, set off back to the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. And when I arrived at the guard room, this was 1992, and we're still talking of IRA times. And I wasn't allowed to go in. The Gurkhas were on guard duty and they'd been there the year before when me and Dad turned up. And I remember sitting there at the guard room, Dad saying to me, "Do you think they've got real bullets in the gun?" I said, "Of course they've got real bullets in the guns. Yeah, they're on guard duty." Anyway, I turned up again this year, obviously without my dad, and I parked outside just the same, and I had to wait for David Chandler to come and get me from his office. And I'm thinking about what Dad had said the year before. Or not the year before, actually. Yes, just about December. And this was February. David Chandler turns up, signed in. Right, follow me. And I had to follow him through the camp, probably quarter of a mile. And we got to his office, and he jumped out of his car, came over to my car, and as I was getting out, he thrust his hand out to me to shake hands and said, "Richard, lovely to see you. Would you and your..." And stopped and peered into the passenger seat. And I said, "Sorry, David." He said, "Oh, I thought your wife had come with you." And I said, No, only me." "Oh," he says, "that's really strange." He says, "Because obviously I kept you in my mirror all the way down through the camp. And all the time, every time I glanced at you, there was someone sitting in your passenger seat." And I said, No, it's only me." And his comment to me was, "Goodness, you don't think it was father, do you?" "Oh," I said, "I don't know. No idea. I didn't see anything." But I cleared the Coke bottle off the seat and moved the maps off it as well. Now, he is a credible, he's dead now, unfortunately, but he's a credible author of many books on military history, lecturer in war studies at the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. A credible guy, I'm telling you. And he says that he saw someone sitting in my passenger seat. And I think that Dad was with me. But he knew I was frightened of ghosts. He was the one that used to come into me at night when I was having the terrible nightmares. He was always the one that came to me and always told me there's no such thing as ghosts. And I don't know. I don't know what he saw. I saw nothing. I saw nothing at all. But Dr. David Chandler did. It's a story and a half, that is. I think so, anyway.
It's a good one.
But yeah, Richard Baton didn't like it.
That is quite a weird story. And a couple of questions here for you. Sorry, Thomas, you got other questions for Richard?
It wasn't necessarily related to paranormal. It's just those who know me know I'm also a big military history buff. I collect militaria, and yeah.
What's your period? What's your interest? I'm asking you questions now.
I mean, mine's obviously early 17th century, but focused in the Pendle area. But in terms of military, Eastern Front, World War II.
Oh, right.
And wow. I was just going to ask you, as you mentioned, charge of the Light Brigade, if you've had the privilege of going to Balaclava or...
Oh, no. Oh, no. Dear me, no. If only. I mean, you talk about on the bucket list. I have, before I die, I have to go. But the problem I've got now, and have had for a few years, of course, is the fact that I believe that it's very much a no-go area, the Crimea. Being
now Russian Federation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how difficult it is, but I have to go. I actually desperately wanted to go for the 150th anniversary a few years ago, where a lot of people went, including Prince Philip, and rode down the valley of death, where the Light Brigade. But it's an absolute passion of life. I don't know why. I sometimes wonder. Perhaps I need to be regressed sometimes to find out if I was there.
Well, I hope you do get to fulfil that dream.
Well, so do I. If not, I'll have to go in spirit, won't I?
I'll pass you back to Scott if that's okay. I
All
don't
right,
want to
nice
steal the
talking to
show.
you, Thomas. We must meet up sometime.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah,
Thank you.
I've never done Lancaster Jail.
Oh, you should. It's a fantastic.
I went up there because I went to a place called I can't remember the name of it. A hall up there to an event and went into Lancaster because it was still a prison then when I went. And also I'd like to go to the site where they were hanged, which I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, is now a park, a kids' park.
It is Williamson Park. Yeah.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah, I'll be in touch sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Richard.
Nice talking to you, my friend.
And you. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
And any more questions, Tom? Just pop them in. It's not a problem. But Pendle has a big passion of ours as well. I've always been fascinated by the Pendle witches and the whole kind of area sort of thing. And we're going down. Well, this weekend. Next weekend we'll be spending 3 or 4 days in Pendle.
Oh, really?
Just wandering about, touring about. But hopefully we'll meet up with Thomas as well. You see some, you can meet him up there. We've got a couple of questions here for you, Richard.
Yes, no problem.
I'll fire one at you just now.
Right, I can read them. Danny Ross, yeah. Do you have a particular continent you prefer researching history on? Oh God, yes, the continent. I suppose Britain, Great Britain. I suppose really. Yeah, Great Britain. I'm fascinated with American history, and I love. I mean, I did a 3-week tour of New England. I covered 14 states in 3 weeks. I was very tired afterwards.
Wow.
I'm fascinated again by obviously the battlefields over there and what have you. And did a tour of Gettysburg, probably the most haunted battlefield on the planet. But yeah, I suppose it's got to be Great Britain. Ireland, I'm very, very passionate about Ireland and its ghost stories and its haunted castles. And Scotland, I love it. I've done a couple of ghost tours around Scotland with Americans.
That was going to be one of my questions to you. Actually, your ghost tour in Scotland, your ghost tours of Britain. Obviously you've done Wales and everything, and you've done Scotland. I was going to ask you what you thought of your little corner of the country.
Oh, I'm absolutely passionate about Scotland. Passionate about and the Stuarts and Bonnie Prince Charlie and Mary Queen of Scots and William. Oh, all of it. But I've done a couple of tours, which I tell you it was really quite funny because I did a tour for 50 Americans, a week's tour of Scotland, and I suggested some of the places that we should go. But they decided that they would change it and do some other places. And they omitted going to Skye, which I cannot believe that we could bring 50 Americans to Scotland and not take them to Skye. I was gobsmacked. Absolutely. So the next one, I'm planning on organising tours myself. One a year, I think. What is going to be Ghosts of England, Ghosts of Scotland, Ghosts of Ireland, and Ghosts of Wales. I think one a year will probably do me. But I tell you what, I shall insist. Well, I shall be doing it. We have to go, and we won't be going over by the bridge either. We'll be going over the sea to Skye. But it's a must, isn't it? You have to do it.
You have to go. Funny you mentioned Skye. Jackie Dixon was on last night. Who you're friends with, she was with you in Whitney about 2-3 weeks ago. You were there. She was on the panel last night, and she's actually going to Skye. She's heading up to Scotland for 2 weeks, and she was talking to me going to Skye. Personally, I've been to Skye. I used to drive the trucks and I did the hovering in Skye one time years ago, and I'll be honest with you, I was kind of disappointed with the Skye Bridge. I know that might sound.
So. They should never have done it. Everybody wants to go over the sea to Skye, don't they? Hey,
exactly.
So, sorry, who did you say it was that was going to Skye for a fortnight?
Jacqueline Dixon, she's in the chat. She runs a normal path.
Yeah. She doing a holiday or?
As she's coming up to Scotland, I think she's touring about, and she was going to go to Skye.
Everybody has to, don't they?
Chat.
You see, the other thing I'd love to do, I probably won't live long enough to do this, is to do In the Ghostly Footsteps of Bonnie Prince Charlie.
Oh, that would be
good.
No, why didn't we think of that?
I don't know. Why didn't we think of that?
And In the Ghostly Footsteps of Mary Queen of Scots.
Now, that is something I want to do.
Here's your lady.
Well, you better book in, because I'm seriously thinking about it. And In the Ghostly Footsteps of William Wallace.
I'd go for that one. Sarah is a massive. Well, so, you know, I'm not a massive fan, but Sarah is a massive fan of Mary Queen of Scots. We did a couple of lives last year, and it was Sarah that done them.
Yeah, I'm passionate about her as well. Absolutely passionate about her. And she came to Derby. She came to Derby twice, and was executed because of a man from Derby. The Babington plot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was a Derby lad, and she spent her last night of captivity in Derbyshire, in the home of the man responsible for her beheading, Anthony Babington. And my heritage centre, which I mentioned earlier, where the ghost was seen, was next door to Babington Hall. Mary Queen of Scots probably in her visit to Derby came into that school. It was next door to Babington Hall. And her ghost has been seen everywhere, hasn't it?
It's about.
She's kind of similar.
Why? Shall I explain it? Why I think the ghost? Because basically, to be famous, to be beloved and adored, as she wasn't by the Scots, by the way, because you chucked her out, didn't you? But
no.
called her a whore, and wanted her burnt. But anyway, regardless of that, she had charisma. People were prepared to die for her, and did die for her. So, in other words, what I'm saying is, to be that sort of person, you need an awful lot of energy, charisma, a presence beyond anything else. And you know, when you meet someone like that, you often say, "Do you know they left a real impression on me?" You know what I mean? I would imagine Lady Diana, Princess Diana, left one hell of an impression on an awful lot of people. Yeah, Mary Queen of Scots did the same thing, and I'm a huge believer, as you probably know, in my theory about the stone tape theory, and that people with a lot of energy leave an impression of themselves wherever they've been. And so I think the fact that she is reputedly haunts every place she was imprisoned. Yeah, she haunts Linlithgow. She haunts Holyrood. She haunts Carlisle Castle. She haunts Bolton Castle, Tutbury, everywhere. And I just think that it's a presence. It's an impression that she's left in the fabric of the building. A recording left behind, and we call it a ghost.
I'm glad you see that, Richard, because we're big Tudor fans as well. The Tudor period, we love the Tudor period. Yeah. And it's Anne Boleyn's ghost is reported to have been seen in about 7 or 8 different locations. You know, the Tower of London, Hampton Court, Hever Castle. Yes. And somebody once asked me, how can she haunt so many locations?
Yeah, they can't. No. Not haunt. No, you're right. I think. This is just a theory. But you see, how can they? You see, the fascinating thing is that Mary Queen of Scots doesn't actually haunt the castle, the place that she was executed in, Fotheringay Castle in Northamptonshire, and she had a dreadful death. which is absolutely perfect for causing a haunting. But she's never ever been reported being seen. By the way, there's nothing that's ruined. But even so, she's never been seen at Fotheringay Castle. But she's been seen everywhere else that she's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she leaves an impression of herself. But that's back to my today's magic will be tomorrow's science. 150, 200 years ago, nobody realized that we could leave impressions of ourselves on a piece of tape. But we do.
Well, true. That is true.
Videotape, a cassette,
It's
a DVD, a CD, you know.
well, that is true. I mean, back in Maddie, Glowswitch, she's part of our English team. She wants you coming on an investigation with us. That's you got an invite from England to go on an investigation.
Nice. I'd love to. The only problem, quite honestly, I'd love to and would, but the only problem is, and I have to say this to so many people so many times, this is my job. This is my profession. And much as I'd love to come as invited, I can't afford to do that because I'd never be at home. And I'd love to come, but I'd have to charge you. That's the trouble.
Oh well, that's we're Scottish, so you know what to say about the Scottish having
Yes.
you know, so that means no Scotland, you know, not unless you like Iron Brew. If you like Iron Brew, that's fine. You know, Iron Brew. It goes well with whiskey.
On the Scotch whiskey.
It goes well with whiskey. Sam's asking about Edinburgh.
All right. You were in Edinburgh for part of it. How was Edinburgh? I love Edinburgh, Sam. I'm very fond of Edinburgh. I've been a few times, and I did a complete DVD, Ghosts of Edinburgh. I did two. I did Ghosts of Scotland, but then I also did another one, Ghosts of Edinburgh. And I'm very fond of obviously Holyrood, where Mary's secretary was murdered, David Ritzia. I'm very fond of Mary King's Close as well. I think that is just beyond anything. I love it. I love Edinburgh.
What about Greyfriars?
Oh, sorry, forgot that. Yeah, right. Okay, are you ready for this? I shouldn't be saying this, but one of the things I'd love to do, because I raise money for Teenage Cancer Trust. Because when I was 18, I had teenage cancer, and I survived for 52 years. I want to raise money for the Teenage Cancer Trust. And I keep mentioning it, but luckily, I'm very pleased to say nobody's taken me up on it. And I want Joe Public out there to nominate the scariest place on the planet for me to spend the night alone, locked in. And I mean locked in. So I can't get out. Oh my God, I don't know how to do it. Because don't forget I'm trying to get. And I do genuinely believe that probably one of the scariest places on the planet would be Mackenzie's tomb. And I mean the real Mackenzie's tomb. Not the through the Covenanters prison in there. I'm talking about the actual locked tomb where he is actually interred, still in his coffin underground, the steps that go down to where he is, with the other skeletons in there, and be actually put in Mackenzie's tomb for the night. I cannot think of anywhere on the planet that would be worse to be put alone.
That would be good, wouldn't it? That'd be.
No, it'd be dreadful. For God's sake, don't forget what I've said, will you?
I'm just, you see, I keep a pad beside my desk, Richard, all the time, so I'm just writing that down.
No, don't. Forget it.
Richard once locked in with George Mackenzie.
Can you imagine?
Leave it with us. But I say, so we love Edinburgh. We've done quite a bit in Edinburgh.
Yes.
And we've done some investigation. We've done Greyfriars.
Yeah.
Greyfriars is just a place that it's hard to describe. The whole, people. It's called the most haunted graveyard in the world. But whenever we go, it's just a feeling of calm that
It's
we
so
get.
peaceful.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You see, I did a fantastic interview with, I don't know whether you know him or know Davy the Ghost from Edinburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And he reckons that he invented the Mackenzie poltergeist.
He invented.
He reckons he invented the Mackenzie poltergeist. Yeah. True or false? I've no idea. But that was his story. He told me. I don't know. But it's one of the best stories. But of course, to me, it's got absolutely nothing to do with the Covenanters prison. It's his actual tomb, which, as you know only too well, isn't in the Covenanters prison. It's before you get there on the left-hand side, always locked.
Exactly.
Whether we'd get permission to put me in there for the night, I don't know.
Well, as I say, Richard, leave it with us. We can certainly maybe be. I know I'd certainly come along, and I'd love to do it, but I'd certainly come along and watch, shall we say?
For the night.
I'll keep the key.
Thank you very much. Wait for me banging on the door. Let me out.
That's not a problem. But I know you mean about the Mackenzie tomb. Some people do get that mixed up with the Black Mausoleum.
Yeah, no.
Which is inside the Covenanters prison.
You see the difference between it my view has always been the last place to be haunted should be a graveyard, because all that's in the graveyard is the vessel that once held the energy. Mm-hmm. Your body. That's right. Although that is also energy, because that becomes fertilizer for daffodils. Your body does, but the energy that's you has left the body, and so I don't see why a graveyard should be haunted unless people died in the graveyard, buried alive, murdered in the graveyard, committed suicide in the graveyard, or in the case of the Covenanters prison, of course, died starved to death.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I believe the place is haunted.
I think, everybody assumes that graveyard, I think every ghost team, right, will go investigate a graveyard. And, we've done it ourselves. We've been, quite a few of them. I've always been the sort of thinking that, okay, a graveyard could be haunted, but then so could a brand new superstore.
Of course it could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because, it's not necessarily a building. It could be the land.
The land and what was on it and what happened on it.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
and of course, the big one with certainly with Greyfriars and many other graveyards in those days, of course, you've got disturbed ground, because as you know only too well, they were dug up and someone else put in the graves, or someone else put on top of them, because they were so short of space. Mm-hmm. I mean, they reckon there's thousands and thousands of people buried in that graveyard, don't they?
Yeah, the estimation is about 500,000 bodies.
Yeah, on top of each other. Some dug out and bones thrown away, and the next person dropped in the grave.
Exactly.
Disturbed land.
Greyfriars started out totally flat, kind of in a valley kind of thing, way back. And, obviously, yourself, Richard, now, and everybody else has been in Greyfriars knows now it's actually quite a bit of a hill. Yeah. And it's because of the amount of bodies that were buried in there.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
It's hard. I mean, I've been there, I don't know, hundreds of times, and I still can't take that fact in, that you're only standing. I know the old saying is, you never walk over a grave, don't stand on a grave.
Yeah.
But Greyfriars is the kind of place, it doesn't matter where you walk.
Can't help it. Yeah.
Whether it's grass or path, as you say, you can't help it. You are walking over somebody's grave.
Absolutely. It's one of the wonders of the world, isn't it? It's fantastic.
Chloe's asking, it's just disappeared. What's your favourite place you've investigated?
Oh dear. God. Well, there's so many. As I say, I love Mary King's Close. I really do love Mary King's Close. I would love to do the Tower of London because I think that's as haunted as anywhere. I've filmed in it, but I haven't done an investigation in there. But probably one of my favourites, to be honest with you, was the Queen Mary in Long Beach in California. That is such an incredibly historic and haunted ship. That was an absolute treat to investigate there. That was really good. That was as good as it gets. Craigienos Castle in Wales was a fantastic place. I found that quite scary. Sort of place you didn't want to be at the back when we were going around the place. You really wanted to be in the middle, not at the back. But there's so many places I've been to now. And of course, the battlefield of Gettysburg is an incredible place, especially at night, to go around that. And that is eerie. That is very eerie. And they reckon one of the most haunted battlefields on the planet. So, yeah, you name it, I've been to it. There's other places I haven't been to yet. I'm still looking for, new. I want to do the Alamo in Texas. That's another one on my bucket list.
So you're listening. You got a list about that size.
I've got a huge list. That's the trouble. And I'm running out of time, guys.
And I dare say you've got a few miles still left on the clock.
I hope so. Sorry, what's this? Do you go ghost hunts with a team at Derby Jail privately? I would love to do an investigation with you. Basically once a month, I do a night vigil at Derby Jail from 8 o'clock till 2 in the morning. And you can book on it. It's 35 quid, and you even get a pie and mushy peas on the night. And I've actually got 2 jails, 8 minutes walk apart, and every month I do a night vigil. If anybody wants to book on it, if they just go to richardfelix.co.uk or Derby Jail.
Look at that now.
GAOL. And you
Thomas, you write this down, Thomas.
Yeah.
I am.
richardfelix.co.uk. And basically, I've got one on, when is it? I've got one on the 17th of July. Saturday, the 17th of July is the next one. I do one a month.
I can speak to
tell you what,
Justin.
nobody leaves Derby Jail disappointed. What's this, Chloe? I've investigated Chillingham Castle. What are your thoughts on it? I love Chillingham Castle. It's got such genuine, real hauntings. It's a fantastic place, and I'm going up there on the 23rd of this month to discuss with Sir Humphrey Wakefield about doing an event, a weekend where we actually stay over in because most of the apartments at Chillingham, because you can stay there as well, doing an event, a ghost hunt and an event and a dinner, because I do a thing called Dining with the Dead, which is a five-course dinner with ghost stories. And to do that at Chillingham, I love Chillingham. It's a fabulous place, and some genuine ghost stories there.
Your events at Derby is a limit to who can go. How many people you limited?
Well, it's not very big. I normally we look about 20, but you can obviously book. You can book it, and that's 20 plus your staff, if you know what I mean. Because we've got 2 jails, and so we split you in half, and one group goes up to the other jail, and then we swap over, and then we end up in Derby Jail for the finale sort of thing. But about 20 is a good number.
We will, sir. The wee wheels are turning now.
There you go. Yeah, no, it's got a pedigree second to none. It really has. But it's not very big. But it doesn't have to be, because there are lots of jails around the country that you can now visit, prisons. But when you've been in one cell, you've been in all of them.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think Derby is so active?
Right. Okay. Location, centre of the country, is one reason. Everybody, for 2,000 years, people have passed through on their way somewhere else. Some have stayed, some have been dispatched back, some have gone on to greater things. There's my huge belief in ley lines, energy lines, that were once prehistoric. In other words, prehistoric man set down his own ley lines and followed them. They became trackways, and those trackways have become roads. So roads that were once ley lines, laid down, energy lines, where two of them cross, you've got more energy. Derby, when the Romans were here, there were 5 roads crossing, converging at Derby. And when it became a major coaching station in the 1760s, there were 9 major coach roads, all converging on Derby, which were once ley lines. Mm-hmm. And that means that you've got a hotbed of energy. Add to it water, which I think plays a huge part in the ghost business. There are 7 underground streams going through the centre of Derby, a river going through the centre of Derby, and dozens of ancient wells. Add to that trauma, tragedy, pain, anguish, death, and battles, which all took place in Derby. You've got a hotbed of paranormal activity, which causes it to be extremely haunted.
Well, true. Very, very true. It's just like everything's in a kind of big paranormal bucket, basically.
Yeah. I call Derby the crossroads of history.
The thinking cap is definitely on for that one. Chloe's got a question for you, Richard.
Shrewsbury Prison, another spooky location I have investigated. Do you like it there? I've never been yet, Chris. I've not been. I believe it's pretty haunted. All prisons are haunted because of the amount of, stuff that's gone on in them, including murder inside a prison, suicide, execution, torture. Really, prisons are notoriously haunted. But up to now, never been yet. I'm waiting, but I will be going, hopefully. I've done others. I was at Gloucester Prison last week. That's quite good. But the older the prison, I believe, the more activity there is there.
You do spend a lot of time, traveling about and obviously doing your tours and just with everything, really. You see there, Ron, you're quite a very, very busy man. Where do you find the time to fit family stuff in? Do you ever find time for the family?
Yes. Well, I tell you what, I've thoroughly enjoyed lockdown. me and Netflix have had a fantastic time. Yes, I do, because I've got two sons and two grandchildren, and I do find time. Yes, I do. I'm a very old-fashioned family man, and believe so much in family. And yes, I do make time. I do make time for. I have cut down a bit on the amount of ghost walks. I try and do one a week now. I do 4 different ghost walks round Derby alone, different ones. And I used to be out, nearly every night, but I've sort of cut back on that. And now I do one now. But I also get asked to come and do events with other people, with other paranormal groups, which takes me, I was at a fantastic place on Tuesday night called Coombe Abbey in Coventry. Wow, an incredible place. Last week, I'm off to the Haunted Antique Centre on the 9th of July. I get asked to go places, and people Probably not Scots people, but people pay me to come.
Well, no, I dare say we'd part a pound or two, maybe. Who knows, I can understand you getting asked for it because you've been around for a long time.
That's the trouble. I've been doing this for 30 years, yeah.
I don't mean that you're ancient,
I am ancient. I'm bloody 72, mate.
I wouldn't put you a day past 47.
Thank you very much. That'll do. Yeah, I'm an old git now. That's the trouble. I'm getting along in the truth.
But the other thing I was going to ask you about is the I'll probably pronounce this wrong because I've got a habit of pronouncing, some English names quite wrong, haven't I?
Yeah.
I've done it 2 or 3 times when Jacqueline was on last night. So apologies if I get this name wrong. The Congleton, I've done it, I've got it wrong. Congleton haunting.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Congleton.
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 Cong.
Yeah.
Leton. Congleton haunting. I don't actually know about. I mean, obviously, everywhere's got ghosts. Tell me more about it. Or you're asking me, but I don't. It doesn't ring a bell. Apart from what happened on Most Haunted, is that what you mean? With Derek.
Yeah. I wasn't going to with Most Haunted, but that one kind of caught my eye, and I thought I need to ask.
Yes, it was an absolute bit of proof how genuine Derek is. Absolute proof, because basically we were. Oh God, I'm trying to think. Basically we were in a place just up the road from Congleton, and Derek picked up on Highlanders, Scottish soldiers, right, wearing plaids, not kilts or plaids, and he couldn't understand it. He said, "I'm getting them passing through. They're passing through on their way," and I'm trying to think of the name where we were, the place where we were, but we were very close to Congleton, and it was on the road, the main road into Congleton. And the fascinating thing is that in 1745, when Charles Edward Stuart, Boniface Charlie, reached Leek in Staffordshire, he split his army in half, and half of his army continued on to Derby, actually to a place called Ashbourne, and he split the army in half, and the other part of the army headed for Congleton, being led by Lord George Murray, who was Boniface Charlie's general. Mm-hmm. And those Highlanders would have stopped in this town where we were on the way to Congleton and stayed the night there. And so there would have been about 2,500 Highlanders in this town. And then basically they got to Congleton, and it gave the government troops the impression that they were heading towards Wales. And so the government troops set off towards Congleton, and then Lord George Murray doubled back, and they met at Derby. And that was a piece of information that, unless you're a historian that's into Scottish history and Boniface Charlie, nobody would have known that. And I that sold Derek Acora to me. Now then,
that convinced you. So a couple of folk are talking about how well you look for your age.
Yeah, Peter Pan. Yeah. I think there's been a mistake with my age. I think my birth certificate must be wrong, because I don't feel it and I don't act it most of the time either. Everyone tells me I'm still a child at heart, which is fine.
I still get ID'd when I get, ask for ID when I get into cigarettes or whatever. People still ask to see my ID.
Your dreams.
And it's quite flattering, when it happens to you, sort of thing.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah. Aye, okay, I'm getting one. I wish they did. I actually did get asked for ID about 5-6 years ago. So I used to drive the trucks and I don't know if you heard the Govan area in Glasgow.
Oh, yep.
There's a big Asda there, and I went in for beer one afternoon, and I'd left the truck in the car park, and that's a bit silly. I went and took it into the shop. The truck was outside, and I went to pay for my beer, and the young guy's like, "Have you got ID?"
Wow, that's a compliment, isn't it?
I says, he says, "I need ID off you because you're buying beer." I says, "You're kidding me on."
Yeah.
He says, I says, "Listen," I says, "see that truck that's in the car park?" I says, "That's mine." I says, "That's my ID's in there." I says, "So," he says, "I need to ask you for your ID." I bet happy see when I came out of the shop, I was like that,
I think you were absolutely incredible.
I get ID. Shropshire's want to know what you think of 30 East Drive.
Not a lot. Not a lot. I was invited up there to the premiere of the little film they made about it with Chris Conway. You're Chris Conway. Yeah, a great guy, Chris. And Chris's comments to me were, he reckoned that my underpants were more haunted than 30 East Drive. And I have to say, I went round it, and well, I don't sense anything. I'm a psychic brick, guys, with a beam. I don't see dead people normally, and I don't sense stuff like that. But Chris picked up nothing, absolutely nothing.
I know there's been many teams went and picked up nothing, but then the other side of the coin, teams have went and said that they've up, I know one programme particular done it, which really didn't float my boat, but we won't go there. But
no, I'm not a believer in it. I'm not a believer in haunted council houses. I think it's normally the children that are there, prepubescent children that are giving off the energy that cause things to move. And the other one is that normally with a council house, it's usually the family are trying to get an exchange, wanting to move, and the council won't move them. And so you invent a ghost story, you invent a poltergeist, and it gets in the newspaper and on the local news. And all of a sudden, the council feel as if they have to move you. They're duty bound. I hate to say it.
We should try that. We'll try and get a move.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Help me, my house is haunted.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that a TV program? Help My House is Haunted.
I think it was. I think it was a TV program.
It was. Help My House is Haunted. Yeah, it was.
No, it sounds like
Oh dear.
I got a couple of questions for you, buddy. Here,
Go on, I'm reading it.
One.
Yeah. What I want to know from Richard is, what are all those books in the background? Oh, it's just a tiny bit of my. I've got two libraries. This is my study, this is my study, and then my office in the other part of the house in the west wing. It's got five more bookcases, and then a load more. I can't get it to go around that way, can I? Yeah, a load more books that way as well. They're everywhere, and mainly ghost books, to be honest with you, and military history books, and books on crime and punishment and executions. Awful lot.
The stuff that I read as well. I like to.
Basically, yeah.
As you and I seem to have a very similar taste in reading materials.
Sounds like it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Crime and punishment.
Well, I do an executions day once a month at Derby Jail, because we've got two gallows there, guillotine, beheading block, wheel for breaking on the wheel, and pressing to. I do the whole works, burning to death, shoot. I do an executions day, which goes down a treat. It does. People love it. Horrible history.
I used to watch that when I was, years ago.
Yeah.
I loved that horrible histories. You know, it was on the kids channel. I thought it was absolutely.
It's a good way of bringing history to people.
It is, because the way they portrayed it was in a fun way and very, very accurate. Chloe was asking I know we spoke about Pendle. Chloe was asking about Pendle again, Richard.
Right. Well, my thoughts on Pendle, again, possibly won't go down too well. Because you see, number one, there's no such thing as witchcraft. There may be white witches, but basically they were the wise ones of the village. They were the cunning ones. They were the person in the village that helped you with your milk yield. They'd got a potion or of some sort. If you'd got a wound on your wrist or your arm, they give you a poultice that would help. They were like the local doctor, the apothecary at the time, or the doctor. They helped with childbirth. They helped with washing and laying out the dead, and and some of them were probably mediumistic in the same way as Derek was, and so they were slightly different. But they were known as the Wiccan, which was the wise one, because Wickercraft is the craft of the wise. But the problem was that the people in the village always clung to the old faith a lot longer than people in the town did, because the information didn't get through. So, in other words, everyone was pagan, and we all believed in Mother Earth and the horned god and the Mother Goddess, which was the main one, not the man, but the female was the main one, the goddess. And they believed that we came from Mother Earth and we went back to Mother Earth. And that's a fantastic way of thinking about it. But they clung to the old faith, and all of a sudden we all became Christian. Yeah. But the people in the village still clung to the old faith. Now, Christianity, being a cruel religion, like all religions are, to be honest with you, had to eradicate and get rid of those demonic people that clung to the old faith. And the best way of doing that is to demonize them. And they changed the name from Wickercraft to witchcraft, and said that they were cavorting with the devil. That's the devil that had been created by the Christian church, because there was good, so there had to be evil. And they were agents of the devil, and they had to be removed, and were. Now, that was all tickety-boo until all of a sudden we all changed sides again, and we all became Church of England, Protestant. No more Catholicism, no more Catholics, no more idolatry. But the people in the village clung to the old faith again. And most of the Pendle witches were Catholics. Nothing more than that. And so they had to be, and the meeting at Malkin Tower was on Good Friday. And it was basically a Catholic celebration that they were all attending. And they were demonized again by a guy called Robert Noel, who was the magistrate, who was a good Protestant. And so the same thing applied. Now, that means that, and of course, they were hanged for it. Now, basically, why would they be ghosts? Well, I should think they were. Remember, this is your grandma, your 68, 70-year-old grandma that's been when I say tortured was illegal, but treated very badly in prison and forced to confess to being a witch and then strangled to death. You're going to be a bit angry, aren't you? And probably hang around.
Yeah,
which is what they've done. But that's all it is. They were, witchcraft is nothing more than the craft of the wise, the Wiccan, the wise one of the village.
What's your thoughts on that, Thomas?
Yeah, what is it, Thomas? Tell me more. Come on.
I mean, are you asking me whether I believe the Pendle Witch's haunt some of the various locations on the Pendle Witch Trail?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Good man.
Personally, no.
No, thank you very much. That's not all.
Rubbish.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, there's a possibility that some of them could be haunting somewhere. But you see, the other problem I've got, and I'm not going to be very popular for this. Where? Pendle Hill. What do you do? Do you actually do you just go on to Pendle Hill and hope there's a ghost there? Oh.
No, you're exactly right. And of course, Pendle Hill doesn't appear in the story at all. It has no relevance to it.
Absolutely nothing to do with it whatsoever, other than it's a hill and it might have rocks on it, and there is energy. There is definitely energy given off by stone. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about that one. That's why standing stones were built. They give off energy. But you know, oh dear, yeah, Richard won't be very popular. But I it's a fantastic area. It's a wonderful. It's a tragic story, and I can understand some of them haunting because of what they went through. Because you know they were all. I don't know whether they were nasty people or nice people, but whatever they were, after being tortured and publicly strangled to death, hanged in public, I can understand them still being around because they're so cross. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure there are genuine ghost stories to do with the Pendle Witches. I believe that. But regardless of that, what an incredible true story it is as to what happened to the poor devils. Devil's the wrong word because they're not devils. Poor people. Mm-hmm. Your grandma, you know. Forced to be, you know, stripped naked, shaved, pricked with prickers to see if blood comes out, looking for the devil's mark on your body, made to stand up, walk around yourself for 24 hours without sleep, putting ridiculous things. They used to put new shoes on their feet and sit them in front of an open fire and swim them, you know. Throw them in, tie their right thumb to their left toe, their left thumb to their right toe, tie a rope round them and throw them in the pond. And if they sank, they were innocent because they were accepting the Christianity and baptism by water. But if they rose to the surface, as most people do, especially if you've got a couple of dresses on and a petticoat and what have you, and you rose to the surface, you were guilty because you were renouncing Christianity and baptism, and so they took you out and hanged you. It was a lose-lose situation, wasn't it?
It was a lose-lose. I mean, I've got a question. I've got a question for both you, Richard and Thomas.
Yeah.
I don't know why I've never asked you this before, Thomas. Obviously, what you do. Obviously, down through the centuries, we done a witch week a couple of months ago. We featured different witch trials from right around the UK.
Yes.
And obviously, the Berwick witch trials, Essex, Paisley, that kind of thing. The Pendle witch trials, in my view, my opinion, is the one that always sticks out because every year you get thousands of people converging on Pendle, Pendle Hill here.
You're right.
International as well. You know, we're not just talking locals. Yeah. And it seems to be the one, no disrespect to all the other, victims of the other trials. Pendle seems to be one that captures everybody's imagination. Why do you think that is?
Because it's one of its kind. It was meticulously documented by the cook clerk Thomas Potts, so it immediately stands out against other trials. And there's so much information available about it. So,
and it was responsible for Salem, really, and because the book that was created by Thomas Potts went to the magistrates in America. In the New England. Yeah. But then again, I would also say to you guys, there's an awful lot of people converge on Sherwood Forest.
That's true.
Don't you? It's a good story, but the beauty of the Pendle Witches is it's a true story. And you see, this is the big one for me. I am such a believer in the reality of the ghost business being more fascinating than the Scooby-Doo side of it. And you know, and the Pendle story is true. It's absolutely true. And I can imagine that some of their ghosts do haunt, but not in the way that we think, as evil witches casting spells and all. You know, it's just, but it's part of the story. And it's all part of, you know, myths and legends. And I'm a great believer that behind all myths and legends, there's grains of truth. Even Robin Hood.
We've had a couple of people in the past, not recently, but you know, in the past saying, you know, why would you be investigating Pendle Hill? I said, well, we're not investigating Pendle Hill. Well, it's not the hill, you know, it's the area.
Yes.
The boroughs, you know, are dotted all around the hill.
Yeah.
So you call it Pendle Hill. So, well, we don't call it Pendle. It's just a name that's kind of been given to it, you know.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. And what a story, and what an incredible tourist attraction it is. And long may it rain, and long may it survive. Because there is something in it, and there is, you know, I do genuinely believe that a lot of alleged witches do haunt because of what happened to them. In the same way as lots of hanged prisoners, hanged people haunt because of what happened to them. But you know, other than that, what I keep saying is they weren't evil witches.
No,
there's no such thing as an evil witch. There is evil. There is evil. We know that. Don't think for 1 minute that Hitler's wandering around picking daffodils, because he's not.
I mean, my theory on my way of thinking about Pendle, I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I do apologise. But to me, the whole Pendle witch trials started for 3 reasons. 1, because a child didn't want to get into trouble. 2, her son wanted revenge. And 3, because a magistrate wanted fame.
Correct. Absolutely agree with you. And so many unfortunate alleged witches were either unpopular in the village for some reason. Someone wanted that bit of land that she owned or they owned. Wanted her, you know, she was causing a nuisance. She was a problem. She was a neighbour from hell, for want of a better word. And people pointed the fickle finger of fate at her and called her witch. And, you know, there was money in it. Thomas Hopkinson made a fortune out of his, you know, witch finder general. Made a fortune.
Yeah.
And other witch finders up and down the country did the same thing. In the same way as the Inquisition in Europe, especially, you know. All to do with religion again. And heresy.
The witch prickers as well.
Yep.
That became a job. Anybody could be.
Of course it did. Yeah. How much did you get paid to prick a witch?
I'll think about that.
To hang a witch?
Sorry?
Okay. The executioner would be paid.
Aye, to hang a witch. So it was, you know, money, fame. Yeah. But it was the witch pricker bit that got me, you know, just. And these guys would travel around the country making money.
Yes. Yeah.
Sticking a spike.
Incredible. Isn't it?
Spike. You know what I mean? You one more question for you, Richard, before we wrap up. I think we're kept you warmed up.
I'm going to bed then.
That's a lot.
Absolutely fantastic. No, thank you very much for that. Absolutely. If you had one famous spirit you could communicate with, who would it be? Oh dear. I say it free. There's a lot. There's an awful lot. I'd love to speak to Davy Crockett to see if he did surrender or whether he was killed. I'd love to speak to General Custer, who's with Custer's last stand. I wouldn't mind having a word with Derek to see what it's like over there on the other side. But the one person that I would like to talk to would be Captain Lewis Edward Nolan, who was the man that was accused of being responsible for the charge of the Light Brigade. the man that apparently, so they say, pointed the wrong way down the valley and sent the 673 cavalrymen in the face of 12 cannons, to ask him if he really did do it or whether it was a mistake. And so that's the one person that I would love to speak to. But I might have a word with him when I get to the other side.
If you bump into him. Well, what were you, Thomas? If you could pick one person from the past,
Janet
to-
Davis.
it's a bit of a daft question,
Who
wasn't
would
it?
you choose?
Who would I choose? Elvis.
Mine
I
would
say
be,
Elvis.
mine would be Mary Queen of Scots.
Give me
Yeah,
a
of course it would. Of course it
Well-
would. Yeah.
That's good. Henry VIII. I would say Henry VIII. I'd like to have a word with. I think he was an interesting guy.
It was a
Oh,
womanizer.
just a bit, yeah.
Aye, he was a womanizer, but he was king of England. I mean, he became king in England when he was 18, so he had all this power, he had all this money, you know, and he liked the ladies, he liked his tennis, his hunting. You know, he was just an 18-year-old guy.
Like,
Yeah.
You know, you know, later on in life. To see, we love the Tudor era. It's
Yeah,
been a tour of London.
Fascinating, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I've been to Tour of London 3 times and Hampton Court Palace 3
Yeah, it's
times.
great, isn't it?
Brilliant. We're going back there in September.
yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
We've
Wow.
got a private investigation lined up with Charlotte Underwood
That'll be good.
and Patty Negri's coming up as well.
That'll be good.
So we're looking forward to that. But I'll hold on you, Richard, for a wee second or two after we come off, if that's all right, buddy.
Of course, mate.
Good stuff yourself. So thanks very much for coming out to each and every one of you. We hope you've enjoyed an hour and a half with the famous Richard Felix.
Infamous.
Infamous, all right, infamous, with the man himself. And we're back next. Well, we're not back. Sarah and I are away, but the girls are back next Tuesday with Mark Edgerton, the author of the haunted history of Huntingdonshire. I think I said that right this time. So thanks very much, everybody, for coming in, and have a nice weekend. I hope the weather holds for you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for that.